let's start. Yeah. Can we please? Thank you. Amrita, can you please hold? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So, a very warm welcome to everybody, just like the weather here in Kolkata. And we're expecting some rain, as we're expecting a wonderful session today from our dearest Aloka ma'am. The Pranjani Foundation has been working in this field of individuals with disability for last 1 year and a half. And we are a supported vocational setup where we plan for trainings, all the other kind of supports, internship opportunities, and eventually placements. And our office is at Beleghata, and we have a team of almost 40 people and a wonderful setup of almost 45 to 50 individuals working with us. So today we have with us Mrs. Aloka Guha ma'am. I'm sure we all know her here, and for thanks a lot for agreeing to be with us, ma'am, here for sharing your experience of almost over 4 decades, as far as we know. So, ma'am, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you to our audience here. She has been the former chairperson of National Trust for Persons with Autism, Cerebral Palsy, Intellectual Disability, and Multiple Disability. She has also worked closely with the Government of India in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. And she has been still now working along with RCI as a senior rehabilitation consultant. And as far as we know, that she has worked diligently in the field of policy making and implementation of the same. So we are very glad to have you here, ma'am, with us. Thanks a lot. And before we begin, I have just 2 more announcements to make. As you all saw in the welcome video, we have a series of 6 webinars in this series in conversation with. Today is our second webinar. In the upcoming month, we have 2 more, one on cerebral palsy and rehabilitation. Another one is of the social autonomy of somebody with an individual with visual impairment, and how they figure their way out in the world and make the mark for themselves. So we will keep you posted on that. Another very important announcement we have, I would request Abruda to please share the creative here. We have an in-person workshop with us in the office of the Pranjani Foundation, Beleghata, on 15th of July. Abruda, can you please share the screen once? Thank you so much. Not this one. Ekটু আমাকে দিকটা একটু share করে দাও, please. Right, thank you. So we have this coming on, a 1-day interactive and very experiential workshop on sexuality of individuals with disability. That would be done by our dearest Amrita ma'am, our MD and founder of the Pranjani Foundation. And we have a very special offer for today. For people who are here at this webinar today, we would like to offer you a discount for the early birds, the early registrations. So please click on the link that is given in the chat box right now to register yourselves, and I hope to see you all again. Yeah, so for further moderation and taking it up from here, I would request our dearest Dr. Amrita Panda ma'am to take it over from here. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Priyanka. A very warm welcome to all the listeners, to all the participants today. And a lot of thanks to ma'am. Ma'am, in spite of your very busy schedule and all the other engagements, it's the Pranjani's pleasure to have you here today and to talk to you regarding a very important area of special needs. And we are just waiting to hear from you. With your permission, I would like to start and hand over it to you. And before starting ma'am's presentation, Priyanka made the announcement of the workshop. I would request everyone, please do not register while ma'am is presenting or while we are going on with this webinar. This link and this offer will remain open till 6 o'clock today. Please let us invest ourselves fully to this talk at this moment, and then go for another. So, ma'am, would you like to share your screen?
Yes, Shall I start, or are you going to ask me any question that I can respond to?
Yes, ma'am. So, as per the format of this series, ma'am, it's a conversation format that we have already discussed with you. So, but ma'am, we cannot see you anymore after this share.
You
Your
don't have
video
to see
is
me.
gone.
দেখার কোনো দরকার নেই।
দরকার নেই? Okay, ma'am. ঠিক আছে. Okay. So, ma'am,
But
we
as
would
long
like.
as you can hear me, I'm okay with that.
Okay. So, ma'am, the first thing that we would like to know from you today, as Priyanka mentioned, it's a journey of more than 4 decades almost. So, when and how did your journey as an activist and advocate started? If you can enlighten us with your journey.
Okay. Thank you, Amrita, and thank you, Priyanka. It's such a pleasure to be here with Deepranjani, a new organization doing so well in such a very short time. And I think it's due to the leadership of Dr. Amrita Panda. Amrita, pleasure to be here.
My pleasure.
My journey actually has merged personal with professional, because I started very early. That's one. And Priyanka, I just wanted to correct you that you introduced me as chairperson of the National Trust. And then you said she has also worked with the Ministry of Social Justice. Actually, the National Trust is part of the Ministry of Social Justice and not a separate one. And so is RCI, of course, which you know. So let me just start with some of the direct influences in my early life. My great-grandfather, another doctor, we have a family of doctors, started the Calcutta Orphanage in North Calcutta, is still there. My doctor father would have a free evening clinic every day. My mother would feed them very generously, and my grandfather would give them free medicines. And all my mothers and aunts have been in this work. One aunt started a blind lighthouse for the blind, another one started blind school for the deaf. And when the partition took place, they would actually go to Howrah station to rescue girls coming in from East Pakistan, because there were pimps waiting around everywhere wanting to catch them. So my aunts would go and shepherd them and take them to a safe place, find them food, shelter, clothing, and work. So this has been part of my journey. And my grandmother, of course, is a descendant of Swami Vivekananda. He himself, of course, was not married, nor were his brothers, but his sister's granddaughter is my grandmother. So we've had this family of bulbuls and girl guides and unselfish and habit of giving back to the society. And I also went to a convent school for 11, 12 years, very strong Christian influence on my life. Idolized Mother Teresa, whom I met so many times. My mother protested my entrance into medical school because I was a very sickly child, apparently. I didn't think so, but she did. So, but I did go into education. So education has been a very early fascination for me. And I was exposed to a Canadian system of education when I was barely 19 years old. And that's a way of learning through research, learning through self-learning. It's a different kind of, it was very different from our system of education at that time, where we had teachers and professors who would come and give long lectures and write some things on the board and just go away. So we didn't have that much interaction in those days. But I've had a very supportive family and my in-laws also. And the nice thing is that my husband, late husband, went to school with a disabled child. So he never ever questioned the kind of work I do. In fact, he was extremely supportive. He was a very different guy, a very corporate type of guy. So whenever we needed money, wherever I was working, Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, Kolkata, we would go to him for funds and for money. And he was very supportive. But in terms of my career opportunities, my first job was in a mental hospital in Canada. And that was like a huge eye-opener. And I changed credits and went back and did special ed instead of general ed, because I was so influenced by the kind of in-house persons that we had at that time. When I came back, I taught slow learners in an American school. And then when my husband got transferred to Delhi, I worked in AIMS on a voluntary basis. And I worked in Mumbai, and we started the earliest community-based cross-disability early intervention programs. And then to Chennai taught me a lot. National Trust, importance of legal framework is what I learned. And RCI and WHO, which was a big, different kind of world for me. But now I'm a consultant, and I work on human rights, on laws and policies, and inclusion, especially in education.
What an incredible journey, ma'am.
Yes, it's been. Thank you.
It's not just a journey. It started with a legacy. It's basically a legacy that you are carrying forward, and along with that, such an eventful and enlightening educational and professional experience. It's I mean, one of its kind, I suppose. I mean, we know you for such a long time, but this is for the first time I got to know all these details, and it's a pleasure, ma'am.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So, ma'am, we would like to know from you that how did this journey impacted your personal self as well as your social self?
A very good question. Thank you so much. In the early years, before I was married, it was a smoother journey because, as I said, I worked in a mental hospital. In those days, Amrita, they would club persons with mental retardation and persons with mental illness in the same place. And they was like residential, permanent, and they were locked up all the time. So every time I entered a room, I had to open with a key. So those days, the words that were being used were idiots and morons and cretins and so on. The terminology reflected the changes in the society. So today we use words like persons with disability, emphasizing the personhood long before the disability. So my first students were murderers and rapists and violence-prone adolescents. Many of them wanted to kill me. Many were younger than I was. I was actually proposed to by one of my students. And some students were so severe that they couldn't figure out whether there was a male or a female, because to them, men wore long trousers and their legs were covered. And if I was wearing a sari, my legs were covered. So they couldn't figure out which gender was I, because the legs were seen when women who were the nurses and the doctors, etc. It was always their legs that showed, but mine didn't. So they were a bit confused. But my first priority was behavioral change because of the work that I was doing at that time. So Pavlovian, Skinner, Beck, and all of these. When I came back to India, I was offered a job for all of 200 rupees. Which of course I didn't. I didn't take. I was so shocked and shattered, but that's why I worked in the American school. But you know, when we were children, we didn't have any discussion about money, whether it was at the dinner table or it was a family get together. I mean, money was a bad word, so we didn't choose our professions by the amount of money that it would bring to us, which is very different from what it is today. You know, Paisha kothay beshi pabo was never a question. So when I came back, I was over a period of time, Rita Peshwaria, who was one of the well-known behaviorists in India, Dr. Jayachandran and Dr. Jayanti Narayan. So now, after all of this, I teach positive behavior intervention supports in inclusive classrooms. So even in the understanding of how we change behavior, it has undergone huge change. First, we would look at responding to the consequence. Now we look at responding to the antecedent, and that's a big journey in itself. My coming back to your question, and you know, you asked me how it impacted me personally and socially. When I got married, My husband was a typical corporate honcho, very bada sahab type. And there was lots of just too many cocktail parties that one had to attend, and the wives were very important in the company. So Sara din, all day I would be in slum areas, and which, you know, the kind of work that I have experienced is like quite phenomenal. But in the evenings, I would have to get into my chiffons and my high heels and go to parties. So it's something that bothered me for a while, but then I told myself that these both are the realities of India. India is not one only or the other only. So these are dichotomies that exist in our everyday life, and we deal with them. We don't take away anything from the work we do. Coming to perspectives, as I said, I told you from my very early childhood, it's this question of giving back. And later, it became a question of human rights. And above all, it was always education. And still, to me, inclusive education is my best bet. So in terms of practices, I've done it all from institutional special education to daycare centers, to outreach programs, to CBR. Now, of course, it's community-based inclusive development, CBID. Then I moved from special ed to integrated education, and now to inclusive education. So there was always these combinations in between inclusive and special school together and so on. But my priorities have evolved. First was behavioral change. Then I started understanding early detection and intervention, the very foundation of where life begins. How early can we find out, detect, and start interventions from that point? And I've always worked with developmental delays and intellectual disabilities. So at that time, we didn't recognize autism as a separate disability in India. So an overall pervasive developmental delay, these were the kids, newborn babies we used to work with. So the concept of parent support services has also changed. You know, let me tell you, earlier on when I was working in Bombay and we'd work very closely with doctors, we would have this development of an IEP where the child would sit in the center, very young child. There would be a doctor and a social worker, a psychologist, a special educator, and the therapist. And the mother would stand outside like a guilty person, not part of the discussion at all. So it would be everyone else deciding the child's future, except, of course, the child himself and the parent. And today that has reversed itself. When you do an IEP, you make sure that the parents are there as part of the discussion, because their goals for their child may be very different from the goals that you have. So then the role of parents kept evolving. Then I got into policy making and strategizing, and I find that piggybacking is the best strategy, and I'll come back to you on that. And it's always been my endeavor to strengthen existing facilities and existing services rather than to develop new ones. Why? And I'll come back to you again on that. So I want to, even today, whenever I'm in a policy meeting, I try to minimize the verticals because they're more costly. Whereas if you do horizontal embedding, then they are more cost effective. And I've done that in Tamil Nadu, I've done that in Bangladesh. So this is how my priorities have evolved. None of the ones that I've mentioned has actually left me. But in terms of time, they have sort of built one on the other. And so in terms of work stations, I've gone from being a grassroots worker to a classroom teacher at the local level, then as a speaker, as an administrator, as a trainer, and as a teacher educator at the regional level. And at the national level, it was policy making, scheme maker. Most of the schemes we would get into, we would be asked to be part of the process. And now, having reached national and international levels, I'm now back to local level. partly because physically I can't travel as much as I used to. So my development as an individual has been a cycle, really. I've come back fully now to traveling less and shouting less and fighting less, and coming back to the local area. So let me just start with early intervention that I talked about. It's at that time, we had this wonderful American lady as president of this association for persons with mental handicap in Delhi and in Bombay, and she used the word person with mental handicap rather than just mental handicap way back in the 80s. So that's from where so many people have inspired me, and Gladys Kotawala was one of them. She even then was putting person first. So at that time we worked with doctors, with hospitals, and I worked with babies who were half an hour old because we had clinics in government hospitals like JJ Hospital, and we understood how important it is to take the parents on board, but also within half an hour, if you can even detect that this is a high-risk child, not necessarily a child with disability, you may not always be able to establish that, but that there is a possibility of risk. If you can start within half an hour, 1 hour of birth, and that's only possible if you work with hospitals. That really taught, and so many thousands of people and children and parents have come back and said, it's because you guys started early that today I can walk, I can talk, I can do lots of things which would have probably not been possible if it had been left to a later age. So first cross disability early intervention community clinics, of course, I was much younger. So we would crisscross the city, kabhi Kandivali, kabhi Borivali, kabhi coming back to Goregaon, going to Malad, all over the place. We're traveling by trains, by traveling. Sometimes my husband would be kind enough to give me the car, but otherwise it was very hectic, and I loved it. I enjoyed it because we saw parents and children changing and evolving. At that age, life evolves very quickly. So you go from neck holding to sitting to rolling to walking with a few steps and running. So those changes happen quickly, which if you leave to a later age may not be possible at all. So the concept of prevention, early detection, early intervention is completely instilled in my mind, particularly with the groups that I worked with. So then from there, this is in the 1980s, from there, I went to Chennai, and Chennai was like, I had a beautiful board, a wonderful team, and huge government support. You wouldn't believe the kind of support the government would give us. We worked with the health department and education department, rural development, social welfare department. Are Baba, everybody was so supportive of NGOs. And this partnership concept, which is not there in many states, and you know that, I know that. So, but it worked, and it's there in Chennai that I did my best work. I went from local to state to regional, national, and from there I was picked up. I was the first person in India from the NGO sector to be made a chairperson of a statutory and autonomous body at the full rank of Secretary to the Government of India. So I had this huge salary, which I didn't know what to do with, and lots of perks, which embarrassed me initially, but one gets used to it. And there, in that time, I moved from special education to integrated education. And this is before RTE, right? So once, and just happened chance, so many things happen just by chance. I used to work very closely with the government, as I told you, from the very beginning. So Wahape in Chennai, one day, a gentleman called an IAS officer, very senior, very respected, called R.S. Pandey. He used to be Joint Secretary for Social Welfare, but he was transferred to Joint Secretary in the Education Department, and he was Joint Secretary for DPEP, District Primary Education Program. So eighth दिन, he had come to Chennai, and without telling me, he dropped in at the Swastik Society of Tamil Nadu. And he said, let me see, I gave Aloka 15 lakhs to build a building. Jaake dekhte hain wo kuch kiya ya nahi kiya. So he just dropped in. And of course, the building was ready. But when I took him around the center, he said, kya kar rahe ho yaar? These kids should be in regular schools. So I said, आपने तो DPP किया, मगर वहाँ पे कोई provision तो नहीं है disabled children के लिए. He said, क्या हुआ नहीं किया, अब करेंगे ना. Actually, within a month and a half, we started inclusive education in DPEP, which morphed later into the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and now Sarva Shiksha Mission, then Samagra Shiksha. Today, there are 24 lakh children. It happened by chance. And I was all set. That's one thing, if anybody wants to learn anything from me, I would say, always put your hand up. Yes, I can do it. You may start small, but it will grow. Never ever say no. No is a habit. Yes is also a habit, but it leads to huge things. So from there, we moved to the National Trust, and then I worked with the WHO in Delhi and WHO CRO office, Southeast Asia Regional Office, not the country office only. So we had 11 countries working, and that was like quite wonderful.
Yes, ma'am. So while hearing you, I mean, this whole talk is turning out to be a journey through India's entire movement in the field of special needs. It's a one of its kind journey that we are listening today. And I understand that you started from a wonderful legacy from a family, but the areas that you have touched and the stature of your service to the community, it's our privilege that you are a part of, we know you, and we could be a part of this community with you. Ma'am, this is incredible. And this is turning out to be amazing, this whole knowing this journey through you. It's like knowing disability movement in India through this webinar. So ma'am, thank you for sharing. We will move to the next part of it. I'm sure the participants that is there present today, all of us would like to know that how policies are made in India and what are the major setbacks. So we have our own judgments, mostly knowing nothing very clearly. And I would like us to be educated in a way that we understand how these policies are made, because you are the best person to know from.
Well, thank you so much, Amrita. That really is a huge learning space. Because when I was with the Ministry of Social Justice, National Trust.
Ma'am, I was just, if you can mute your video's microphone.
My laptop?
Yeah, laptop's microphone. It's echoing.
It's echoing, yes. No.
Ma'am, can I mute you?
Yes, is that better?
Yes, it's better. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things about the National Trust, one of the things about the National Trust that I enjoyed the most, and there's lots that I didn't enjoy because it was very bureaucratic in some ways, and I fought it. One of the things was being able to participate and represent Government of India in the UNCRPD from its very first meeting. So over a period of over 4 years, I would represent Government of India, sometimes with 2 people, sometimes with 1. And that was a huge learning experience for me. And even the making of the National Trust was a huge learning, because I started lobbying for the National Trust in 1987, and it fructified in 1999. And all through that, the government would put it once on the back burner, then again on the front burner, then back to the back burner. So lobby, it was a huge thing. And it was only meant for those with intellectual disability initially. I fought and it became cerebral palsy. Mary lobbied, got autism in it. So Mary and I were both on the drafting committee. And even after that, it went back to the back burner. And finally, in 1999, on the last day of the last millennium, we got our National Trust, which was a process that taught me so many things. First, let me just say this, that policies in a Western concept means both laws and policies. In India, a policy is an expression of the government's intent, but it is not justiciable. You cannot take a person to the government to court because of what is said in a policy which is not being implemented. Whereas in a law, which is made by Parliament, passed by Parliament, made by a concerned ministry, passed by Parliament, and after getting the President's assent, and after being published in the Public Gazette of India, that becomes a law, and any part of the law you can take the government to court on. Now we have national education policy, which I will hopefully talk about later. So policies and laws don't fall from the sky. They come from the ground. They actually struggle. They look at the struggle that people have with certain practices, with certain customs, certain sections of people, the obstacles that they face, the barriers that they face, the problems that they face, and the possible solutions are there, but are not being done. That's when a law is made to make those solutions possible in a legal framework. So everything comes from the ground, and then it goes, it's a consultative process always, usually at least, not always. And then the government, the concerned ministry, like Ministry of Social Justice did the National Trust, took it to Parliament, got it passed after almost 7-8 years for various reasons. Bajpayee government fell by one vote, and then there's another government in place, went back and forth and so on. So the policies are an expression of the government's intent and which follows from the act. No policy can do more than the act itself. So the act is the defining factor. From the act follows the rules. Who makes the rules? The concerned government. The Parliament makes the law, the concerned ministry makes the rules, and the concerned body, the authority, makes the regulation. So there are 3 parts to a law: the law, the rules, and the regulations. And why so many parts? Because once you make a law, it's very difficult to amend it. Takes a long time, takes too much work. So, but changes can be made by the ministry when they make the rules, and they can be made by the, like, for example, National Trust has a board. It writes the rules, writes the regulations. Like National Trust will say, we'll have a chairperson from someone who's from the field. Now the regulation, the rules will say this person must have at least 2 disabilities experience. And the board will say, this is this person's rank, Secretary of the Government of India, this is what the salary will be, this is what the other allowances be. So it gets finer and finer and finer, and which can be changed. So in India, as you know, welfare is a state subject, right? So the Government of India cannot make rules, cannot make a law unless it has signed an international declaration. So the PWD Act came from after India signed the Beijing Declaration, and after signing UNCRPD, Government of India made the RPWD Act. So otherwise, it's the state which makes its own provisions, etc. So the major setbacks that we have that you asked me is actually the poverty levels. The size and the structure of the country, the poverty levels, persons with disabilities are among the poorest in any country. The rigid, inflexible systems that we have, And at the district level, I learned that from the National Trust, that he's in charge of the local level committee of the National Trust, but he also has 200 committees that he heads. So where is the disability coming from? Right at the bottom of the pile. So these are the priorities. हमारे पास जो priority है, उनके पास वो नहीं है. He has a different set of rules that he has to follow. Different law and order is his biggest headache, and so on and so on. So these are the issues that we face with top-heavy administration, with very poor multi-sectoral linkages, and so on. And this is where what you asked me about is where does this change for me from exclusion in segregated settings, I moved to inclusion. And then it's been an absolutely lifelong passion for me. It follows from the rules, from the rights. To continue, you want to say something, Amrita?
No, no.
Okay, so the legal setup in our country is like this. The international obligations are the UNCRPD, which have been ratified, the SDGs, which have been signed, the Indian strategy, which has been signed. Our domestic laws, the RCI, the RPWD Act, and the National Trust Act, I've had some part to play in most of these, but also in the education one, when education became a fundamental right in 2002, it was the 86th Amendment to the Act. The RTE of 2009 didn't have disability. So a bunch of us, we fought with the education minister at that time, Kapil Sibal, and we said, how can you leave out our children? So then within 3 years, he amended the RTE Act to 2012 to include children under the PWD Act as well as the National Trust Act. So those amendments are very important. And then, of course, there is the NEP 2020, which is far more inclusive and far more accessible. And everyone, this has been ingrained in me, and I want to ingrain it in you. Everyone is equal before the law. Nobody has anything special or anything different. सबके लिए law समान है. And whatever your status in life, it doesn't matter. The law is the same. So as I said, in National Trust, we were understanding the nature of the law. Most people didn't understand. So I crisscrossed the country. How many times I can't quite remember, but I remember at one point I was traveling like 20 days at a stretch. And my the 21st day was in Ahmedabad. And I opened my suitcase in the morning and I found I didn't have a single blouse to match the sari that I was going to wear. Nothing that was ironed and cleaned. So those are just a few of the lighter moments. But yes, getting this to people, the importance of legal backing, legal framework, that is a important, like you said, it's not something most people understand. And when I worked with the WHO, which is of course a very strong UN body, I understood the importance of every comma, every full stop. Documentation is so important. And most of us, and I'm sure you face that, Amrita, in your setup also, most people don't have time to document. They're so busy offering services. Document करने का time ही नहीं है. कब
Yes,
लिखेंगे?
absolutely.
Huh?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, but this is so important. Unless you document, even if you set aside half an hour or a day
Right.
to write down what has happened on that day, you not only reflect on whether you did this right or wrong, but you put it down to posterity. And that is important because WHO taught me to strategize, to think big, to see the bigger picture. It's not one or two incidents in a day, but it's the bigger picture, something that's replicable in other countries, in other parts of the world. So this strategizing and scaling up and sustainability, replicability, all of this came from my WHO, and they were the followers of laws. So after I retired, then I started my own consultancy. And this wonderful lady you see in the center, Saima Hussain, she's the daughter of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. And she gave me a 5-year consultancy along with an American organization. You see that guy on the side. And so much work has been done in Bangladesh. They're way ahead of us in India. So there also, I was able to support them to have a National Trust of Bangladesh and a Rehabilitation Council of Bangladesh. They didn't have any laws regulating the development of human resources. And this is where I think you want me to introduce question on the NEP. Yes, without.
Yes, of course, ma'am. All of us know that this is your favorite topic. But before we move to NEP, I would really like to, ma'am, I'd like to thank you for this enormous work and this enormous journey. And it's because of people like you, we are working in a society, we are working in a profession where we can think, we look forward at this moment. Because as we understand that 50 years back, there was almost nothing. As you said, they were locked. Mental illness and mental retardation was dealt as the same. So, and it had been such an incredible journey that we are experiencing through you today. It's my deepest gratitude to you, ma'am, that because of you, whatever we are doing, whatever small or whatever size of work we are doing today, it's because of you people, and it's our heartfelt gratitude to you. And before we move ahead to NEP, ma'am, I would like to ask you if you would like to talk about the major existing policies in the field of special needs in India today.
Sure. Okay. So this RCI, of course, the Rehabilitation Council of India, 1992, which was the very first act, very first law on disability in India. In fact, the 1990s was a watershed year for disability, because in 1992, we had the RCI, the PWD Act in 1995, and the National Trust Act in 1999. So it was like years of work before that, which culminated, which forced the government, which pushed the government to understand the importance of a legal framework. Otherwise, people were suffering needlessly, and where a lot of solutions could be found through legal sanction. So these three acts, and RCI, of course, was amended in 2002, putting in a research component. But by and large, RCI is for the development of human resources. They have 16 specialties, the largest one being special education in HI, in VI, and so on and so on and so on. And then, of course, there is the orthotists and prosthetists and RCI goes from certificate level to diploma to graduate to postgraduate to master's to PhD. So this is like a whole range of educational qualifications. And the RCI Act supports the provision of one qualified special educator for every child with disability in school. It also includes speech and occupational therapists. It includes clinical and rehabilitation psychologists. It includes, within, say, hearing impairment, there's ear mold technician and several other, within VI, there is mobility instructors other than all of the other. So it's like a whole bunch of rehabilitation professionals coming together. Earlier, there was OT and PT under RCI, but they moved out and they formed their own council. But RCI is also a statutory body, came through an act of parliament. They have a chairperson who their chairperson is a voluntary person, honorary person, doesn't get a salary. So it's usually very difficult to find a chairperson who would want to work for that, because otherwise you'd have to be just Delhi based. So currently, the Secretary to the Government of India, Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, is the chairperson. In fact, currently they don't even have a member secretary. Another charge has been given to somebody who's already in the ministry to take over RCI. So RCI again doesn't work in a vacuum. So you and I, if we feel the need to have a particular professional training course in a subject, we would write to the RCI and say, please give us training for caregivers. So if you write to them, then they will look at the seriousness of it. They will make their own inquiries. Then they'll set up an expert committee. So RCI works largely through expert committees. And there are expert committees for every subject, including one on inclusive education for the last few years. So they would set up an expert committee from taking people from across the country, and they would then debate the necessity of the course. If yes, then they would look at the curriculum. They would set the standards of who's going to be the guest faculty, who's going to be the regular faculty, how many, what would be the teacher-student ratio, what kind of space should this organization have before giving them a course. Itna bada kamra honi chahiye, playground honi chahiye, books, 1,000 books, and so a special school if it's for a special education subject, and so on. So RCI does all the framework around the development of quality human resources. RPWD Act, which followed the Persons with Disability Act, is an overall mother act. It has 17 chapters and 112 sections, and all the topics are dealt with separately. There's education, there's skill building and vocational training, then there is accessibility, then there is special schools or special organizations that NGOs need to be working, the kind of registration they need in order to be allowed to practice special education. And so the 17 chapters, on the last one is on all of that couldn't be handled in other acts, in other chapters, is usually multifaceted. The 16th chapter to me is the most important. Now, why? Because this is the first time that we have penal provisions in an act on disability. What is that? That is, anybody who insults, hurts, harms a person with disability can be fined, can be given even given imprisonment. So this was not there in the RPD Act. So this detailing, even a parent, if you deny your guardian, whether you're a parent or a legal guardian, if you deny them of food, shelter, their medication, even then, if a complaint reaches the authorities, that person can be punished. So Chapter 16 is new. There are many new things in the RPD Act, which was not there in the PWD Act. For example, legal. Before that, we didn't think of the person with disability as having legal capacity. But UNCRPD, which is of course why we have the RPD Act, because we signed the UNCRPD, so we had to modify our own existing laws and have a new act based on rights. So the rights of persons with disabilities gives you legal capacity, and at even the district level now, there has to be a person, a nodal person, who will handle issues of disabled people. And in employment, again, it was earlier 3% reservation in government jobs, one for the blind, one for the hearing impaired, one for the mobility impaired. Now there's one extra, 4% in all, in terms of autism, SLD, ID, and multiple disabilities. So this new 1% in employment is added on. Employment also, every every unit, industrial unit, which has more than 20 persons, it has to have a register. How many disabled people you are employing? What, and you have to have a grievance redressal officer within that unit to go and complain to. So many new features in the RPD Act. Moving on to the National Trust Act, it is basically a protective, welfareist approach, where we didn't look so much at rights. We looked at how we can support them and their families in distress. So also to give them legal guardianship. Now, how did this law come about? Because earlier on, Amrita, you know that, 1912, we had the Indian Lunacy Act, where persons with intellectual disability and those with mental illness were clubbed together in terms of legal guardianship. But 1987, when the Mental Health Act came in at that time, they took out those with intellectual disability. So parents had nowhere to go. Kahan jaake hum legal guardianship lenge? So that was the genesis of the National Trust Act. And today, I think they have 70, 80, I don't know how many lakhs legal guardians appointed within 3 months through the quasi-judicial powers of the district collector. So have I answered your questions, Amrita?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure the provision of the 16th chapter of the RPWD Act, it's very useful for us as a professional and parents, because I'm not sure if this is known by most of the people, most of the parents and families of special needs. And we face humiliation and discrimination so often. So this can be very helpful. So ma'am, coming back to NEP, all of us know that you have been working very hard. You are into advocacy, and you're talking about this like anything for last 2 years. So what is your take on NEP, ma'am? And what about the implementation? NEP is there, and there's a huge question about the implementation now. So we would like to hear from you.
You made a tactical mistake by including NEP in this presentation, Amrita. It's my favorite topic, and I can go on for hours and hours and hours.
And ma'am, I'm very willing to correct this mistake by arranging a webinar only on NEP for 2 hours. Very soon, very soon.
So I will go through this quickly. Because I think it's time for questions and answers. The National Education Policy is a very futuristic document, which is at one end local, but preparing for global. So this balance, to do this balance in a poor country like ours is not going to be easy. So, but it is very accessible, it is very inclusive, and it is based on equity. And the National Education Policy has much, much more to say about children with disabilities than the previous education policy of 68, 86, and 92. And from the very beginning, it says that education is a great leveler and is the best tool for achieving economic and social mobility and inclusion. So they have identified, you know the Constitution, Amrita. So everything about disability comes from the socially and economically disadvantaged, those words. So that was an RTE that is also in the NEP, and disability is one of 4 groups in the SEDG. The other is gender and socially weaker section and economically weaker section and very remote areas. So these 4 groups are clubbed under one. And in this particular slide, I'm just trying to show you a very complicated picture, actually, that there are 4 types of education for persons with disability. One is the special school. The second is home-based education. The third is neighborhood school. And the fourth is NIOS. And all of these 4 are mentioned in the NEP, except we don't call special school a special school. They're called as alternative forms of education. And let me tell you, all of you, if amongst you there are special educators, there is a huge need NEP says for special educators, with two caveats. One is that they have to have subject knowledge. How to teach science to an autistic person in class 8, you have to know that. And the second caveat is that it has to have, special educators have to have cross-disability training. So currently RCI is organizing, developing programs. Those who come with training in VI, you can access short-term courses for HI, MR, ID, ASD, etc. And that all of the schools, all of it is a little mountain area school, whether it's a small school somewhere, a play school or in a night school, every school has to be inclusive. And particularly for children with disabilities, some very special provisions are there, especially for those with SLD. My only complaint is that they use words like Divyang somewhere, they use CWSN somewhere else, they use differently abled somewhere else. If they could have found one terminology to settle this debate once and for all, then that would have been very useful. So let me take a minute only to answer your question in implementation. Unfortunately, 2020 NEP was followed by the coronavirus pandemic. So that sort of put a hold on many, many things. But when I started researching on implementation, I went to every state website and many other websites. I found, hey, come on, lots of things are being done actually. So Jharkhand, Punjab, Bihar, Himachal, they're going to do in phases because of resource crunch. And in Punjab and in Himachal, they're saying the higher education and the professors are protesting. Teachers everywhere are protesting because they don't have the wherewithal, especially the IT part. But students are very happy about the multidisciplinarity, that I can do physics and accounting and geography. So these options that are given by breaking the barriers between streams. But tech is another part, which is an important part of the NEP, technology. There's a whole hour I can take about what's already done in tech, but only Delhi, Puducherry, and Chandigarh have 100% internet in schools. Everywhere else, it's only about 25 to 30%. But there's no surprises that the NEP is being implemented in BJP states. Not so well in Gujarat, I might add. But Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, surprises, they're really doing so much more than they could have. But MP, UP, Rajasthan is a big surprise. Andhra, Tamil Nadu, no, not Tamil Nadu, Uttarakhand doing very well. Now, Kerala and Tamil Nadu not implemented. Why? Because of various reasons, mainly it's a language barrier. They said, we are not going to look at Hindi at all, so don't impose 3 languages on us. But, welfare education is a state subject, but with higher education, UGC has passed 14 guidelines, and even West Bengal is now having to follow those guidelines, because our students from West Bengal will go to Mumbai tomorrow and to Delhi the day after. So their higher education should be. Lots of things are happening, but I know we are running short of time. So I'm not going to mention all of this interesting stuff. And I'm going to go straight to the barriers. One is that politicization of NEP, the COVID Pandora, huge resource crisis, both human and financial. Many people feel the saffronizing curriculum and the network bandwidth is not there. But multidisciplinarity is at once the best feature of NEP and the biggest challenge. So let me stop here and approach the end. That what would can I stop here, because I've had I know we're running out of time, so I had skipped.
No, ma'am. It's till 4:30, and we have. I'm sure we will have questions from the participants. We will take it, but we can take 3-4 minutes more on a last question, which is, ma'am, with your huge experience and with all this knowledge of policies, law, and everything, what are the basic steps? I think we have in the participants, we have parents, we have caregivers, we have families, professionals, all there. So what are the basic steps to prioritize individuals' well-being and rightful equality? What will be your suggestion to the participants?
That's a whole new question in itself, but I have a certain points that I want to clear before that. One is, I would say to yourself, to organizations, and to the younger people, that wherever you see an opportunity, grab it. Don't let an opportunity go, because you never know what it will lead to eventually. Second, education is the biggest tool against poverty, against discrimination and exclusion. The question that you ask, what is the best way for an individual? It is education. Unless the person has education, he or she cannot even understand or demand his or her other rights. So बाकी rights को strategize करने के लिए आपको पहले educated होना पड़ेगा, and that is a no-brainer actually. So I would say to all of you, be heard. Don't be afraid. Be heard, be seen, speak up all the time. My strategy is be horizontal. Do piggybacking on existing courses. And I'm sure, Amrita, you're already doing that. If there is a course going on for skill building, jump on it, tweak it a little, and make it accessible to persons with disabilities, rather than having a whole separate skill building program, because that's cost heavy. Whereas if you piggyback, if you do a horizontal program on existing programs, it's far more cost effective. So working with existing structures and systems, strengthening them, that is the best for an organization as well as for the individual. And I used to be very confrontational, very, very confrontational. But I have learned over the years that with confrontation, you may win a battle, but with collaboration and cooperation, you will win a war. So the best way forward is work with people, professionals, non-professionals, parents above all, strengthen them. And that is the future for every individual with or without disabilities.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I mean, the last 4 minutes, I believe, is very, very valuable for all of us. I mean, maybe a couple of sentences, but the content is a lifetime's lesson. If we can follow this, and these are very basic things to say, but very difficult to practice. And if we can implement this in our practice and in our ways of life, in our ways of dealing with special needs, I think that can change the scenario of special needs to a great extent. And thank you so much, ma'am, for everything. We would move to the participants now. If they have a question, we would be very happy to present it to ma'am.
Please tell me.
You can raise your digital hand, or you can unmute yourself and ask questions directly to ma'am. Whatever be the question, please.
Or put it in the chat box.
Yeah, you can write on the chat box. And it's wonderful to ask silly questions, because silly questions are the most beautiful questions. So please go ahead and ask whatever you want, and don't care about your language. It's absolutely okay.
Nobody has any questions, which means either that I was very complete or that nobody was listening.
I'm sure everybody was listening. Ma'am, I have a question.
Sure, please. Go ahead.
Regarding UDID. I'm sure, ma'am, this is what I would like to know for the students as well, for the families as well, because they are also asking the same things to us. What is the status of UDID at this moment, and how to go about it?
I've
We
lost you.
understand. Yes, ma'am. Can you hear us, ma'am?
I can hear you, but
Yes, yes, ma'am. Can you hear me now?
I forgot to show this slide. Can you see my slide? No, you can't.
No, ma'am.
But
We
I just
cannot.
wanted to say one thing, Amrita. The last P of implementation is passion.
Yes.
Without passion, you cannot achieve anything. You will be just watching the clock and doing routine 1, 2, 3, 4 things. But without passion, कोई भी काम हो, वो आप जूते से सिलाई कर रहे हो या कोई organization को head कर रहे हो और कुछ भी काम आप करो, उसमें passion नहीं रहे, so you can't achieve anything.
True. So true. Absolutely. And ma'am, I was asking you a question regarding UDID. So parents, they ask questions.
Yes, you asked me about UDID.
Yes.
Sorry, UDID is not a process that I'm very familiar with, but I know people who are, and I can send you links on the steps involved in how to follow them. One of the things that the government of Department of Empowerment has done in terms of the NEP and the Supreme Court order, and I'm assuming that you guys know what the Supreme Court order is of 2021. It's an interim order, but it asks. Sorry.
Sorry, someone is. Yes, ma'am.
So UDID from on behalf of RCI, Department of Education and Department of School Education and the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, together RCI developed some norms and guidelines for special schools and for training of teachers in regular schools. Now that it's a 5-day program and a 15-day program. In that 5-day teacher training program for general teachers, there's a whole chapter on UDID and the steps that have to be followed. I edited that book, but I can't quite remember the steps, but I would imagine it would be something that goes through the Department of Disability Commissioner in the state. আমার কাছে অতগুলো details এখন নেই।
Yes, ma'am. আমাদের UDID যেটা একটা খুব বড় কনসার্ন সকলের কাছে, সেটা হলো যে ওদের তো পুরো প্রসেসিংটা ওয়েবসাইট বেসড এবং সেটা হচ্ছে, কিন্তু ওটার মানে কোনো কার্ড বা কোনো ফাইনাল যে ডকুমেন্টেশন সেগুলো কিছু প্রসেসড হচ্ছে না। সেইটা একটা হ্যাঁ ম্যাম, সেইটা একটা বড় অসুবিধা। Yes, ma'am, in West Bengal.
Okay.
West Bengal. And parents are mostly clueless what to do about it and how to go about it. So if we can have some information through you, ma'am, we can circulate it among parents so that they can understand how to go about it.
আমি তোমাকে দিয়ে দেব। I will go back to that book which is right in front of me actually. তো ওখানে most of the states এ কিন্তু কাজ হচ্ছে।
Yes, most of the states are working on it, and the parents are getting the cards in most of the states, but in West Bengal for some reason it's not moving that well.
Shucks. আমি তোমাকে information পাঠিয়ে দেব, তুমি circulate করে দিও।
Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much. Do we have a question from the participants? Somebody was trying to unmute herself. কারোর যদি প্রশ্ন থাকে প্লিজ প্রশ্ন করুন।
হ্যালো।
Yes.
হ্যাঁ ম্যাডাম, বলছি সর্বশিক্ষা অভিযানে আমরা কাজ করছি এখন। তো আমাদের আমাদের মানে ম্যাডাম যদি বলে দেন একটু আমাদের ফার্দার আমাদের কি করতে সর্বশিক্ষা মানে গভর্নমেন্ট স্টেট গভর্নমেন্ট কি ব্যবস্থা করছেন, মানে আমরা কিভাবে স্কুলে কাজ করব? স্কুলে তো কোনো স্পেশাল এডুকেটর নেই এখনো পর্যন্ত। তো তাদের মানে ফিউচারটা কি, মানে বাচ্চাদের তো কিছুই শেখানো হচ্ছে না, প্রত্যেকটা সার্কেলে একটা করে স্পেশাল এডুকেটর আছে, কিন্তু স্কুলে তো প্রচন্ড স্পেশাল এডুকেটরের প্রয়োজন আছে, মানে ইনক্লুসিভ এডুকেশনে বলছি, জেনারেল স্কুলে। সেই বিষয়টা যদি একটু বলেন।
সুমিতা,
হ্যাঁ
সুমিতা,
ম্যাডাম, হ্যাঁ ম্যাডাম, ম্যাডাম
সুমিতা
আপনার
বলুন।
ম্যাডাম, ম্যাডাম আপনার
there
ট্রেনিং
are many
করেছি আমি।
states.
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ ম্যাডাম
হ্যাঁ,
আপনার এর আগে আপনার ট্রেনিং করেছি আমি কলকাতাতে।
okay, okay,
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
okay.
ম্যাডাম।
Nice to meet you again.
থ্যাংক
So,
ইউ ম্যাডাম।
এটা is a good, very big question. It's a good question. কেন অনেকগুলো states এ, starting with Delhi, Gujarat, Karnataka, অনেক জায়গায়, the government, local government has made it mandatory to have a special educator in every school, uh, permanently, not itinerant. So এটা West Bengal government এখনো কিছু বোধহয় করেননি, but
না,
most of the private schools আমি দেখছি ওদের special educator আছে, more than
প্রাইভেট
one.
স্কুলে আছে, কিন্তু ম্যাডাম ইনক্লুসিভ সেট আপ আমাদের গভর্নমেন্ট
নেই।
স্কুলে
হ্যাঁ,
কিচ্ছু নেই, এখন পর্যন্ত রিক্রুটমেন্টও হয়নি। তো আমরা তো কাজ করি সার্কেলে আছি, আমরা সর্বশিক্ষা অভিযানে আছি এসএসএম এ, কিন্তু
হ্যাঁ,
ম্যাডাম আমাদের তো কাজ করতে সেরকম প্রচন্ড অসুবিধা হয়, কারণ আমরা তো একটা সার্কেলে বুঝতেই পারছেন একজন আছি। তো একটা করে সার্কেলে আন্ডারে হচ্ছে 85 থেকে 90টা স্কুল আছে, প্রাইমারি প্লাস হাই স্কুল। তাহলে আমরা কিন্তু সেরকম ভাবে কাজ করতে পারছি না। খুবই খারাপ লাগে আমাদের এইটাই যে আমরা এতগুলো বাচ্চাকে একজন কি করে সামলাবো।
ম্যাম, আমার মনে হয় সুমিতা যেটা বলতে চাইছেন সেটা
হুম,
হলো যে এই যে এনইপি ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশন ইনক্লুসিভ স্কুল আমরা
একদম।
বলছি,
হুম
তাহলে এই যে টিচার যারা রয়েছেন
হুম
তাদের ট্রেনিং প্রসেসটা কিভাবে হতে চলেছে, এইটা নিয়ে বোধহয় উনি বুঝতে চাইছেন ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে কিভাবে হতে চলেছে।
ওয়েস্ট
একদম
বেঙ্গল
একদম।
তো এনইপি স্কুল এডুকেশনে ফলো করবে না, সেরকম শুনেছি। লাইক কেরালা এন্ড তামিলনাড়ু, নিজে এখানে আলাদা একটা ন্যাশনাল স্টেট এডুকেশন পলিসি হবে। তামিলনাড়ু হচ্ছে না। Kerala has said part of it we will follow, part of it not. But West Bengal higher education হচ্ছে। But তোমার যেটা প্রশ্ন সুমিতা, সেটা I can actually resonate with it very well. কেননা অনেক তোমাদের আমি শুনেছিলাম from the State Department, আমার in between আমি মালদা, শিলিগুড়ি, কলকাতায় কয়েকটা ট্রেনিং প্রোগ্রাম করলাম on inclusive education with headmasters and others. তো আমি দেখলাম যে কিছু কাজ এগোচ্ছে, আর একটা কত 1,05,000 না কত টিচারদের ট্রেনিং হবে, তুমি জানো অমৃতা?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাডাম, সেটা
জানো?
জেনারেল
সেটা
জেনারেল
হচ্ছে
স্কুলের টিচারদের
জেনারেল
হচ্ছে
টিচারদের।
ম্যাডাম, জেনারেল
হ্যাঁ,
স্কুলের টিচার, কিন্তু ম্যাডাম তাদের শিক্ষিত কিছু, তারা তো এক্সপার্ট নয়। ধরুন আমরা যেমন বিএড করেছি, তারপরে ক্রস ডিসেবিলিটি করেছি, আমরা ধরুন যেগুলো জানি এক্সপার্ট, আমরা সার্কেলের চার্জে আছি স্পেশাল এডুকেটর, তারা তো স্পেশাল এডুকেটর নয় ম্যাম, কারণ আরসিআই থেকে যতক্ষণ না রেজিস্টার্ড প্রফেশনাল হচ্ছে তাদের তো স্পেশাল এডুকেটর বলা হচ্ছে না। তারা ধরুন ওরিয়েন্টেশন প্রোগ্রামটা এই কারণেই নিচ্ছে যে তারা প্রশস্ত অ্যাপে বাচ্চারা যতটুকুনি তাদের মানে প্রসেস ফার্স্ট মানে এটা যে প্রসেস অ্যাপের যে ফার্স্ট পার্টটা তারা অ্যাপ্লাই করতে পারবে, যে অ্যাসেসমেন্টটা করতে পারবে ম্যাম। তারপরে তো ধরুন স্পেশাল এডুকেটরের কাজ ওটা তো আর জেনারেল টিচাররা করতে পারবে না, আর ওদের যেহেতু রেজিস্ট্রেশন নেই সেই জন্য ওরা কি করে
আমার মনে হয়
করতে
সুমিতা
পারবে।
আপনি যেটা বলছেন
হ্যাঁ
বোধহয় আপনি আমাদের যদি এনইপি ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশন ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে হয়, ম্যাম
হ্যাঁ
আপনি যেটা 1,00,000 সামথিং কিছু বললেন,
হুম
আপনি আমায় জিজ্ঞেস করেছিলেন, আমি অলোকা ম্যামকে বলছি, ম্যাম আপনি যেটা আমায় জিজ্ঞেস করেছিলেন ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলের ইনফরমেশনের জন্য, আমি কোনো ডকুমেন্ট পাইনি ইন্টারনেটে, কিন্তু যেটা আমি শুনেছি ম্যাম এই বোধহয় আমাদের 6 না 7 লাখ টিচার্স আছেন, বোধহয় তার মধ্যে থেকে 100 বা 1000 এরকম একটা কিছু নাম্বার তাদের একটা ট্রেনিং হচ্ছে এই মুহূর্তে। আর সুমিতা আপনি যেটা বললেন, আমার মনে হয় না যে ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলের সব টিচার বা কোনো স্টেটেরই সব টিচার স্পেশাল এডুকেটর হয়ে যাবেন এনইপির পর, কিন্তু তাদের একটা ট্রেনিং হবে যাতে তারা স্পেশাল নিডস কেও কেটার করতে পারেন
একদম
অ্যালং
একদম
উইথ
ওইটাই,
স্পেশাল এডুকেটার্স।
একদম
দ্যাটস দ্য হোল
একদম।
আইডিয়া।
হুম
হ্যাঁ,
সুপ্রিম কোর্ট যখন গভর্নমেন্ট অফ ইন্ডিয়া এডুকেশন ডিপার্টমেন্ট, যেটা আগে MHRD ছিল, তাদের যখন জিজ্ঞেস করলো যে তোমাদের কাছে কজন ডিসেবল চিলড্রেন আছে and how many teachers, তো ওরা বললো 23 লক্ষ ডিসেবল চিলড্রেন আছে, 28,000 স্পেশাল এডুকেটর, which
না
means
ম্যাডাম,
1:80. 1:80. So তারপরে স্পেশাল সুপ্রিম কোর্ট অর্ডার দিল যে তোমাদের যারা স্পেশাল এডুকেটর আছে তাদের রেগুলার করে দাও, যে খালি পোস্ট আছে সেগুলো করে দাও, এন্ড টিচার্স দের জেনারেল টিচ, দেখো আলটিমেটলি এটা তো হতেই হবে, দ্যাট রেগুলার টিচার উইল টিচ এ ডিসেবল চাইল্ড। প্রত্যেকটা ক্লাসে প্রত্যেকটা সাবজেক্টে তো স্পেশাল এডুকেটর আমরা পাবো না। স্পেশাল এডুকেটর শুড বি মেন্ট ফর হ্যান্ডলিং, যেটা আমরা ধরো RTI বলে একটা রেসপন্স টু ইন্টারভেনশন একটা স্ট্র্যাটেজি আছে, সেখানে অনেক কিছু, those who are very mildly affected, those who have and with good peer support, many children with disabilities can access the curriculum, but কিন্তু যাদের জন্য স্পেশাল extra support লাগবে সেইটা will be handled by the special educator. কিন্তু যেখানে স্পেশাল এডুকেটর, ক্লাসরুম টিচার বা সাবজেক্ট টিচারের একসঙ্গে কাজ করার অপরচুনিটি will not benefit. Amrita, you need to call Niloy Roy or somebody from the department.
Yes, ma'am. আমি শুনেছি সেটা।
আমি
পরিমল দা প্লিজ।
হ্যাঁ, ম্যামের পারমিশন নিয়ে যদি শেয়ার করতে চাই এই ব্যাপারে, যদি
পরিমল দা একটু ভিডিও অন করলে ভীষণ ভালো লাগবে।
আচ্ছা, আমি এমনি বাড়িতে আছি আজকে।
ডাজন্ট ম্যাটার, প্লিজ।
আচ্ছা, দেখা যাবে কি আমি মোবাইল থেকে মধ্যে জয়েন করেছি, ইনফরমালি জয়েন করেছি। হ্যালো ম্যাম।
হ্যালো পরিমল।
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম, আমি শুনছিলাম পুরো প্রোগ্রামটাতেই আছি ম্যাম, খুব ভালো লাগলো।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
এই স্টেটের কয়েকটা ইনফরমেশন যেটা নিয়ে উনি প্রশ্ন করছেন, যদি ম্যাম আপনি পারমিশন দেন আমি দু একটা ইনফরমেশন শেয়ার করতে পারি, যেহেতু আমার কাছে।
প্লিজ শেয়ার করো।
প্রথমত হচ্ছে যে NEP এর উপর বেস করে এবং সুপ্রিম কোর্টের যে জাজমেন্ট হয়েছে, রেগুলার টিচার্সদেরকে ওরিয়েন্টেশন প্রোগ্রাম দিতে হবে বা সেন্সারাইজ করতে হবে, তার প্রথম ফেজের প্রোগ্রামটা কমপ্লিট হয়েছে। তাতে 1,62,000 টিচারকে টার্গেট ছিল, তার মধ্যে কমপ্লিট করা গেছে ওই 1,48,000 টিচারের মতো। প্রথম ফেজে 3 দিন করে ট্রেনিং প্রোগ্রাম দেওয়া হয়েছে, এটা অনলাইন মোডে করা হয়েছে। সেকেন্ড ফেজেই ওদেরকে এর নেক্সট স্টেপ প্রোগ্রামটা গভর্নমেন্ট প্ল্যান করেছেন, স্টেট গভর্নমেন্ট থেকে JBNTS যারা দায়িত্ব পেয়েছেন, এবং তার সেকেন্ড ফেজে যারা ট্রেনিং দেবেন, এটা লাইভ প্রোগ্রাম হবে। একটা প্রোগ্রামে 200 জন করে টিচার থাকবেন, 200 বা 500 জন করে টিচার থাকবেন অনলাইনে, কিন্তু লাইভ প্রোগ্রাম থাকবে, ওনারা ডাইরেক্টলি কোশ্চেন আনসার করতে পারবেন। এর যে রিসোর্স পার্সন যারা হবেন তাদের সেন্সিটাইজেশন প্রোগ্রাম কমপ্লিট হয়েছে, তাদের যে ট্রেনিং প্রোগ্রামের পরে একটা ওনারা পাবলিক প্ল্যাটফর্মে বলতে পারবেন কিনা বা কিভাবে বলছেন, কন্টেন্টটা ঠিক আছে কিনা, তার টেস্টিংও ইনিশিয়ালি হয়ে গেছে। বোধহয় ফার্স্ট উইক অফ জুলাই বা সেকেন্ড উইক অফ জুলাই থেকে ডাইরেক্ট প্রোগ্রামটা স্টার্ট হয়ে যাবে। এখানেও টার্গেট হচ্ছে প্রায় 1,62,000 মতো টিচার্স। আর সুনিতা যে প্রশ্নটা জিজ্ঞাসা করছেন টিচার রিক্রুটমেন্টের জায়গা থেকে, ইভেন কয়েকদিন আগে আমাদের কলকাতা হাইকোর্টেও এটা নিয়ে কেস হয়েছে স্পেশাল এডুকেটরদের তরফ থেকে, যে আমরা পাস করে বসে আছি, আমরা এলিজেবল, সুপ্রিম কোর্টের অর্ডার অনুযায়ী আমাদেরকে রিক্রুট করা হচ্ছে না। তখন স্টেট গভর্নমেন্টের যিনি লয়ার ছিলেন তিনি এফিডেভিট দিয়ে জানিয়েছেন যে দুটো ফেজে, প্রথম ফেজে প্রায় 2,712 আই থিঙ্ক, অ্যান্ড সেকেন্ড ফেজে 3,000 সামথিং টিচার্স রিক্রুটমেন্ট করা হবে, তার ফাইন্যান্সিয়াল অ্যাপ্রুভালও হয়ে গেছে। যেহেতু এই মুহূর্তে পঞ্চায়েত নির্বাচনের কাজ চলছে, এমবার্গো চলছে, তার জন্য ওটা নিয়ে ফার্দার কোনো প্রসেসিং হয়নি এখনো পর্যন্ত। এই স্টেটাস হয়ে আছে আমাদের স্টেটে।
পরিমল দা, আমার একটা ছোট্ট প্রশ্ন আছে। তার মানে আমরা মনে করছি যে 3 দিন এই যে আমরা ট্রেনিংটা দিচ্ছি, এটা আমরা এই ট্রেনিংটা দিলে আমাদের রেগুলার টিচাররা স্পেশাল নিডস এর বেসিক নিডস মিট করতে পারবে, এটা আমাদের অ্যাজাম্পশন, তাই তো?
তুমি নয়, এই প্রোগ্রামটার যে প্ল্যানিংটা প্রায় 2026 পর্যন্ত চলবে, 2024-26 চলবে। অনেকগুলো ফেজ আছে, কারণ যেহেতু এত সংখ্যক টিচারের কাছে রিচ করবার জন্য যে রিসোর্স পার্সন দরকার রেগুলার মোডে করতে গেলে, আর যে পরিমাণ বাজেটারি প্রভিশন দরকার, সেটা এই মুহূর্তে অ্যাটলিস্ট আমাদের স্টেটের পক্ষে সম্ভব নয়। তার জন্য স্টপ গ্যাপে বলতে পারা যায় যে অ্যাটলিস্ট বন্ধ না করে থেকে প্রোগ্রামটা যাতে মুভ করে, অ্যাটলিস্ট টিচাররা ওরিয়েন্টেশন করতে পারে। যেমন প্রথম পেজের প্রোগ্রামটা হয়েছে, তারপরের স্টেজে যেটা ওদেরকে স্ট্র্যাটেজিক যে ইন্টারভেনশনাল প্ল্যান তার ওরিয়েন্টেশন দেওয়া হচ্ছে। এর করা হবে যে স্পেশালি ইন বিটুইন রিক্রুটমেন্ট হয়ে যাবে তাদের সঙ্গে ওনাদেরকে জেলা ওয়াইজ একটা ব্লক ওয়াইজ টাই আপ মোডে প্রোগ্রামে যাবে, মানে ওনাদের যে কোয়ারিজ গুলো ডাইরেক্টলি ওনারা রেজ করতে পারবেন, এক্সপার্ট কমিটি থাকবে তারা ওই প্রশ্নগুলো আনসার করবেন। তারপরের ফেজের যে প্রোগ্রামটা যাবে সেখানে টিচার্সদের জন্য একটা ইভেন এক্সাম সিস্টেম পর্যন্ত হবে যে ওনারা কতটা শিখেছেন, ম্যানেজ করতে পারছেন কিনা, এটা চলবে। মানে স্টেপ বাই স্টেপ এই প্রোগ্রাম ইট ইজ এ কন্টিনিউয়াস ইন নেচার। তো এখানে
ওয়ান্ডারফুল।
মানে গভর্নমেন্ট
স্যার একটা কোশ্চেন আছে, স্যার একটা কোশ্চেন আছে। হ্যালো
হ্যাঁ হ্যালো শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
স্যার একটা কোশ্চেন হচ্ছে, আমরা যে এসএসএম এর স্পেশাল এডুকেটর, তাহলে আমাদের মানে প্রেজেন্ট স্ট্যাটাসটা কি হবে? এখন তো আমরা ধরুন সর্বশিক্ষা অভিযানে আছি, সেক্ষেত্রে আমাদের
একটা পাবলিক প্ল্যাটফর্মে দাঁড়িয়ে মানে যারা অলরেডি এক্সিস্টিং স্টাফ আছে তাদেরকে ডাইরেক্ট রিক্রুটমেন্ট নেওয়া হবে না নতুন করে রিক্রুটমেন্ট হবে, তার প্রসিডিওর কি হবে এখনো পর্যন্ত ওপেন হয়। সুতরাং এটা নিয়ে আমি পাবলিক প্ল্যাটফর্মে কিছুই বলতে পারবো না, বোধহয় হয়তো বলতে পারবেন না এরকম একটা ইস্যুস নিয়ে পাবলিক প্ল্যাটফর্মে।
না সেটা না স্যার, আমি অ্যাকচুয়ালি জিজ্ঞেস আমাদের ফিউচারটা কি ঘরে বসে থাকতে হবে নাকি
পাবলিক বলতে পারবো না আর কি।
থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ পরিমল দা, থ্যাংক ইউ সুমিতা প্রশ্ন করার জন্য। আর কেউ আছেন প্রশ্ন করতে চান? অনামিকা চন্দ্র, আপনি বোধহয় আনমিউট করেছিলেন নিজেকে। ম্যাম যদি আর কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন্স না থাকে আমরা কি তাহলে এবার আজকে র্যাপ আপ করব?
তার আগে আমি একটু তোমাকে প্রিয়াঙ্কাকে, তোমার পুরো দীপরঞ্জনী ইনস্টিটিউশনকে থ্যাংক ইউ বলতে চাই for inviting me, and it's been a pleasure talking to all of you and to seeing all of you again. And I just want to say, work hard, but don't work for yourself.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I mean, a thank you is not enough for whatever you shared with us today. It's whatever we learned from you, your journey, your practice, your way of working, your suggestion for us. It's life-changing actually. And if we can meet the basics, I think that can entirely change the way we work, the way we expect impacts to happen, and the way we look forward. And it's extremely humiliating. I mean, my heart is filled with humility with whatever we have learned today. And I believe it's the same with all the listeners here. I will, Priyanka, will you take over from here?
Sure, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, once again.
Ma'am, I'm comparatively pretty new to this field, and I have always been wondering and complaining it to Amrita Di that, why is not much work is happening, who's gonna take up the lead and everything. And she always keeps on saying that it's like if we start complaining, there is no end. You have to take the initiative and go about it. And honestly, your story and your journey has been so inspiring, and I guess I'll just take that with me, that saying yes is a practice, and I'll go by it, ma'am. Thank you so much for everything. Thanks a lot.
Thank you Priyanka, God bless.
Thank you, ma'am. And I would request our CEO, ma'am, Papya Roy, ma'am, to please cast the vote of thanks, and we'll end it here. But just before ending, another small reminder that we have another hands-on workshop coming up. We have the link posted in the chat box. Please register for it. We have the discounted price opened till 6 p.m. today. Thank you so much, ma'am. Hope to see you again very soon in person as well. Thank you.
Very soon with NEP, 2 hours.
Thank you, Priyanka. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to thank everyone joining here today. Today, on behalf of the Dipranjani Foundation, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, Ms. Aloka Guha, ma'am, former Chairperson, National Trust for Person with Autism, Cerebral Palsy, Mental Retardation and Multiple Disability, Government of India, and Senior Rehabilitation Consultant of RCI. Ma'am, excuse me if I am miss something, please excuse me. And also thanks our moderator, Dr. Amrita Panda ma'am, our founder and MD, Deep Ranjani Foundation. I'm thanking them for their time and valuable guidance today. My sincere thanks to all participants for joining today's webinar. My sincere thanks to Ms. Priyanka Mukherjee for a wonderful hosting, and also my sincere thanks to the Pranjani Capacity Building backend team. Without their support, it was not possible to arrange today's webinar. I hope today's topic will add a lots of value to our day-to-day activities. In the upcoming weeks, the Pranjani is going to host a couple of webinars and on-site hands-on training program. We look forward to your enthusiastic participation. At the end, once again, I extend my gratitude to the our speaker, ma'am. Thanks again, and our lovely participants. Hope all of you have already submitted your feedback form. If you haven't, please find the link on the chat box. Thank you, all of you. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
My pleasure. My pleasure.